have found over the years that, most educators, their hearts are in the right place in providing the best possible education for students. So, if they're not using them appropriately or they don't know about them, it's just, they're not aware of the flexibility that exists. This past February, I presented at the ESEA conference, and our topic was career and workforce readiness. So I presented with 2 staff from the U.S. Department of Education and then a local administrator here in North Dakota. And the U.S. Department of Ed staff, began the presentation, and they went through all of the title funding, Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV, and Perkins, and, all the dollars that can be used for career readiness. And then myself and this administrator from North Dakota, then we outlined how we're using those dollars for career readiness in North Dakota. So, I think it's just important for school administrators out there to know about those funding streams and the flexibility that exists. As far as what to spend it on, I'm always going to be that one that's going to advocate for spending it on direct student supports.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Leaders of Tomorrow. And today on our podcast series, we have Laurie Matzke. She's the Chief of Program Development at North Dakota Department of Public Instruction. And I'm Avinash, your co-founder at TomoClub and today's host. Today's discussion is about how North Dakota has actually took career readiness from 21% to 73%. And I think how a lot of states can learn from it. So we'll deep dive into it. But before, thank you so much, Laurie, for agreeing to be our guest today.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. Happy to be here.
Perfect. So Laurie, I would love if you can, give us a quick snapshot of your journey in education. Why did you become an educator or join education in the first place?
Oh, sure. So I knew when I was in elementary school that I wanted to be a teacher. And then in high school, we had something called JETS, Junior Elementary Teaching, where if you were doing well in school, you could go down into the elementary and help kids. And so, I knew right away that I wanted to be a teacher. So I taught first grade for 6 years out in California, and then moved back home to North Dakota. And this job at the Department of Education came up first, and I've never left. And so I've been here for 33 years. So it's been a fun journey.
Wow. It's rare to have, employees who are working so dedicatedly for so many years. And I think that experience kind of compound. And it's so relevant to have, people who understand the nitty-gritties of a culture and a community. So thank you so much for your service, I would say. And so when I was researching about you, right, I said that 10 years ago, there was only 21% graduates, who were considered choice ready, meaning ready for either college, career, or military. Today, the number is 74%. And I think most of the states that I work with, they're still stuck under 40. So it's incredible. First of all, congratulations. And what do you think North Dakota do fundamentally different that led to this crazy growth?
Sure. Well, I don't know if we did anything differently, but I can certainly tell you what we did. So 10 years ago, back in, oh my gosh, that seems crazy, 2015-16, all states were tasked with writing a state ESSA plan. And that's when our Choice Ready framework was born. And so, and that's our college and career readiness framework in North Dakota, the Choice Ready framework. And we had to have a growth metric. And so at the elementary, our growth was looking at state assessment. But at the high school, we didn't test every grade level. So we needed to come up with something else. And so that's kind of how Choice Ready came about. And from the beginning, we were adamant that this was going to be a living, breathing plan. We were not going to write it and put it on the shelf. So what we did was we created a Choice Ready committee. And it's crazy to think that for 10 years, we have continued to meet 3 times a year. And many of the educators that started on this Choice Ready committee 10 years ago are still serving on it today, including myself. And so We meet 3 times a year. We're continuously evaluating, improving, updating the framework to make sure that it's relevant, for what's going on in education right now. And over the years, there have been so many changes. So, you kind of mentioned in our framework, we have a post-secondary pathway, a workforce pathway, and a military pathway. And I would say in the beginning, our weakest link was probably the military pathway because that's not our lane. And so we've really worked hard over the last many years to really build up that pathway. And we've worked specifically with the military. We've created all these online courses so that, students who go through those courses, they truly graduate high school being ready to go into the military if that's their choice. It's very robust now. And so, that's what's really worked for us is that just continuously meeting with all of these educators, and the group is very eclectic. It has teachers, principals, superintendents, parent reps, and we just meet and we talk about, what needs to be improved, and we make those improvements.
That's the way you have explained it. It sounds very simple, but it's definitely not easy, because I know I was, trying to get a community together and, on a certain agenda, and it was incredibly hard. So if I have not done it, I would have just assumed that, oh, it's okay. But I know even meeting thrice a year and, having those people who are still working on it for a decade is incredible feat. So I would love to dig in more about this framework. I understand, you have these 3 tracks, but I would love to go one level deeper. And if you can share some major mistakes or learnings in this process, which other states or other districts can avoid.
Oh, yeah. And with anything, you're always going to have those challenges. And we have 2 big regrets that I think, all of us who have worked on this over the past 10 years, would all agree that, 2 things, if we could go back and do it all over again, we would definitely change. And the first one is it has a rather cumbersome reporting process. Mm-hmm. And so if you look at our, choice ready report, it's very busy. It has lots of choices on it. And so there is a student report for every single student in North Dakota, and it looks exactly like the framework. And so somebody, whether that be a counselor, a secretary, whoever they've designated, is responsible for meeting with every student every year and going through and checking those boxes and indicating, which ones they have achieved. And so, for large high schools that have 750 students, that's a daunting task. It takes a long time. And so over time, because we started, once we got into it a year and a half, they started expressing concern about how long this was taking, and it was very burdensome. So we started automating that reporting process where, we can pull in the AP data and the dual credit and the state assessment and the CTE courses. And, that was amazing and a game changer. But in the beginning, we were building the plane as we were flying it. Yeah. And so, it took us some time to get all that automated. So I wish we had kind of had the foresight to know that this would be so burdensome and maybe gotten some of that automation in place before we launched it, because truth be told, it has created a little bit of negativity associated with the reporting aspect. So that would be one challenge mistake that we made. And then the second one is, I really wished we had created a K-8 version at the same time that we created this high school choice ready framework. Because, when we have talked now years later about, hey, we should now build an elementary middle school choice ready framework. Well, people, it's still fresh in their memory how burdensome this reporting is. And so they're like, the elementary middle school principals are like, yeah, I don't know. Mm-hmm. So if we had just kind of created it, in the beginning, made a K-12 system, I think it would have been much more seamless. And back then there wasn't as much focus on career readiness at the elementary like there is now. So hindsight is 50-50, but if we had created a K-12 framework from the very beginning, now we would have that in place, and I can't imagine how amazing it would be. So that's a continuous struggle that we have is, deciding what we're going to do now for K-8, that we have this amazing choice-ready framework, but it's only at the high school level.
No, those are actually very interesting points. And it's always easier to, identify them in a hindsight. While you are working on it, it's difficult. So how did you fix it? How did you fix the data problem? Like, what kind of systems have you guys brought in for measuring that?
Well, like I said, so for the automation, that has been, easily fixed. And we continue to, each year we add a little bit more. And, when you look at the Choice Ready student report, there's little blue clouds by everything that's automated. And each year we get better and better, and pulling that data in, the ABSVAB scores from the military, and pulling in all that data so that it's not so burdensome for the school. So that one was fixed. But like I said, we're still struggling a little bit with, putting together, we do things for career readiness at the elementary and middle, but it's not a nice framework that's built that kind of outlines it like we have at the high school. So we're still working on that, and that's still a challenge for us.
Sometimes I just want to understand more about this relationship between the state department and the districts. So is it like when you come up with a framework, of course, you cannot impose it or dictate it as it is, but there are some kind of funding formula associated with it, right? If you do better, you get more money. So is there any incentivization in this process which can motivate districts to implement it faster and better?
Yeah, and actually this is mandated because it's part of federal law, so it's part of the state ESSA plan. And so, schools don't have an option. They have to complete this choice ready framework or this choice ready student report every single year on every single student 9 through 12. If they want to receive federal funds, which 99.9% of our schools do. So it is a requirement. And, it's a pretty big deal in our state, and, it's in the press a lot, and, the legislature, the governor supports it. The legislature has created a state scholarship, and it is directly aligned to Choice Ready. It looks just like the Choice Ready framework. So students who do really well in Choice Ready are going to be much more likely to qualify for the state scholarship, which will give them money to go into, college or a university. And so there are incentives to do well. And of course, everybody wants to do well. But yeah, they have to complete this reporting.
No, that makes sense. So it definitely closes the loop, and it's not only just a directive, it's more like a mandate. And I appreciate that. But when you talk about like the learnings, and now since you think it should be from K to 12, but it's always has a counter effect as well. So when you do one band, 9 to 12, you have your learning. So I'm just curious, isn't it easier now to implement it K to 8 because now you have the learnings, now you have certain systems, now you know the obvious pitfalls. So what's the hesitation? Because I just want to understand why K to 8, shouldn't it be easier to do than doing it K to 12 altogether?
Yeah, it's been a little bit of a mystery to us as well, because Choice Ready has done so well. Like you said in the beginning, when the very first year we measured it, only 21% of our students were Choice Ready. And now, a year ago when we last measured it, it was 73%. So you would think that alone would be such an incentive, to build it lower. But, educators are crazy busy.
Sure.
I think when new initiatives come along, like the science of reading, there's part of the system that bucks any new initiative to a degree because they're overwhelmed and it's hard to get everything in during the day. So, when they think back, especially to those first couple years about how burdensome the reporting was, I think that's still a little scary. And so I think what we've learned is that we can't call it elementary, middle school choice ready. We need to come up with a new title.
Yeah.
So it's doesn't have that little bit of negativity associated with it. So
Yeah.
yeah, we're making grounds, and we'll get there eventually. And we have a committee that's working on this as well. But it's just been a little bit of a challenge.
No, I agree. And I think that's one of the reasons I am a big, big advocate of AI usage by teachers, because I think, for example, like if I am busy every day in firefighting in my company, I cannot take a step back to think beyond that, what's not working, what needs to be improved. I need to have my own time. So what I do is most of the, like thrice a week, I take 2 hours in the morning when I clear my schedule and do nothing. So it's so important to have that time for yourself. And I was debating the same with one of my friends, that educators joined education because of the love for teaching. And during the journey, they kind of, got carried away with so many of the tasks that teaching became like a 30 to 40% of the job, and 60% became of the admin work. And this is such a great time that AI can solve that part. Of course, not completely, but to a major degree. And they can have this time back. And then they can actually come up with better strategies to think about career readiness, because it is proven science, that as early as you start, it avoids, kids going into wrong direction, or going towards drugs, or, losing their focus. So I think, I think AI use is very important to actually free up your mind, if nothing more than that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, nobody went into education or teaching to do paperwork. So the more that we can, get AI to help us, the better everyone will be.
I also was very interested about the educational apprenticeship that you have done, like across, you have studied both across North and South Dakota. And for any superintendent who has never launched such kind of a program, what are the first three things that they would need to have in place before they even start? And what is one thing that almost kills such programs even before they launch? What do you think about it?
I would have to say the three things to have in place would be a plan, or at least a draft of a plan, who your partners are going to be, and funding, or at least a potential plan for funding. And so I think back to 2022, that's when we began our apprenticeship journey. And so when we were thinking about, starting this, because our department had never done anything with apprenticeships, because CTE is its own department in North Dakota. So our state Department of Education had not, literally done anything with apprenticeships. So we sat down and we created a draft plan where we knew we wanted to have an apprenticeship that took paraprofessionals and turned them into licensed teachers. And, we knew who our partners were going to be. We're going to work with LEAs and, universities and our teacher licensing board. So, we had our little team together, and then we knew that we wanted to pursue U.S. Department of Labor funding. It's called a SAFE grant. And so, we did pursue that. We got a very large $4.1 million grant, and, it took off like fire. And so it was crazy. But yeah, I would say, having a draft plan, getting all the players and the partners together, and then a plan to fund it. As far as what kills it, I would say not having a plan, or, I think for many, that funding piece. As I go out and I present across the nation, people always say, you're so lucky you have funding. And it's sad. It's a sad truth that shouldn't be such a killing a program, but it does, because I know that after Tennessee was the first state to get a registered teacher apprenticeship approved in 2022, well, then all states rushed to do it and get a registered teacher apprenticeship program. But not all states have secured funding like we've been able to do. And so then it just hasn't launched. It's just been kind of sitting there, waiting to take off. So the important thing, I think, is to have a plan. And then, hopefully states are able to secure funding to launch that plan.
No, absolutely. And talking about funding, I think there are a lot of money, I think billions of dollars in federal Perkins and title funds, still available for career and workforce readiness. Am I right on that?
Oh, yes, yes.
And most districts are either not accessing them or they're spending on wrong things. So what are the common mistakes you have come across about district making use of these funds?
I have found over the years that, most educators, their hearts are in the right place in providing the best possible education for students. So, if they're not using them appropriately or they don't know about them, it's just, they're not aware of the flexibility that exists. This past February, I presented at the ESEA conference, and our topic was career and workforce readiness. So I presented with 2 staff from the U.S. Department of Education and then a local administrator here in North Dakota. And the U.S. Department of Ed staff, began the presentation, and they went through all of the title funding, Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV, and Perkins, and, all the dollars that can be used for career readiness. And then myself and this administrator from North Dakota, then we outlined how we're using those dollars for career readiness in North Dakota. So, I think it's just important for school administrators out there to know about those funding streams and the flexibility that exists. As far as what to spend it on, I'm always going to be that one that's going to advocate for spending it on direct student supports. And so when I look at how we're using the bulk of our dollars in Perkins and the title funds, I look at the Career View XR, those career readiness goggles, our dual credit courses, developing online courses, industry credentials, things that are going to directly improve a student's educational experience.
No, I agree with you. It's definitely the lack of awareness. There is definitely no lack of intent whatsoever. And having that vision, and I think this is one of the reasons why this kind of podcast is relevant in my first place, that I want this information to go out to those people that won't think. So what do you think, if you can help explain this more, where is this, where are they spending money and where they should spend money? When you said about awareness, what is it that is missing?
I think time is certainly a barrier, that people don't have time to go out there and read about the various programs, or they don't have time to go to, ed.gov and find out what grants have just dropped and have become available to apply for. So I think time is always a burden, but, we have several subscriptions that we subscribe to that kind of share with us information as far as the flexibility on the federal title funds, new grants that have just dropped. So I think, just accessing, and now with social media, I think it's a lot easier and it's more readily available, but just reading and being aware of, what are the priorities at the federal level, what funding streams have just recently been made available. The feds are always coming out with guidance and resources. So I think it's just finding the time to review and read that information.
No, I agree with that. And definitely I'll put in that website in the description for people who are reading, people who are listening. Sorry for that. So that, they can access to this information. Very interestingly, I also got a chance to be a part of that ESA conference where you showed us the career view. And it was so fascinating to see, those students wearing those VR glasses, even at elementary level, and understanding about whether it's construction work, whether it's military work, or whether there's so many job profiles. So tell us some unique stories about it. And of course, explain it better than me to the audience.
Well, I just think technology and AI, it is literally a game changer. It is just so exciting. And especially for small, rural, isolated districts and communities, of which, North Dakota has many. I think back to when I was teaching first grade, and, of course, even way back then, we had a careers unit. But, it talked about the typical careers that the kids would see on TV, like doctors and nurses and firemen and policemen and dentists. And so now, unfortunately, a lot of kids, they don't ever get opportunities to leave their small, rural, isolated community. and go out to a big city or to other countries and see, oh my gosh, there's literally millions and millions of job opportunities, for you to consider. And that's what the VR goggles do, is they can put these on and they are literally transported into a whole different world, and they can see what does a typical day look like for this job, and what would I do every day, and it just has opened out so many doors as far as, oh my gosh, look at all the choices I have, on what I want to do with the rest of my life. So it's just literally a game changer.
No, absolutely. In fact, when I was in my second year of college, I got a chance to be at the University of Illinois, and I actually worked at a school of music for 2 months, and it was a best experience because at that time I was young, so I was hopping in different classes and learning about it. And I remember when I was back in high school, one of my educator was like, go visit a nearby university, just see the kids over there, see how things are working. And that has such a profound impact on me, and I ended up in one of those universities where I visited, because you can see that vision. So I think having that vision, you find your way. So I think, of course, VR is saving a lot of money and a lot of time in traveling. So I think that's one of the beautiful use cases I have seen. So, but I would love to know, how are you keep on updating it? Like, is it because the students will consume that content and they'll be bored? So how will you keep them excited about that journey? Or is it just one time experience?
Well, fortunately, we don't have to do that. The company does that.
Okay.
So we work with a company that's based out of Fargo, North Dakota, and that's their job to continuously, I think the last time we just had a career day here at the Capitol, and they had 110 right now, but they have people that's their job to continuously be adding all of these career opportunities to the goggles to be able to share this information with all the students. And, we recently expanded it into the elementary. So now all students in North Dakota, K-12, have access to these career view goggles. But this company, they are adding all of these opportunities. And so, takes the load off of our shoulders.
No, I agree. And I think AI again has a huge role to play, because the speed at which the content production is happening at the VR level. Otherwise, it used to be very highly technical, and the speed at which the content was coming out was definitely capped. But with AI, things are like incredible. You can think and it's there, literally. So the speed of production is definitely taking over. Because I was talking to one of my friends who works at a VR company, and that's one of their challenge, which is now getting better and better. So I'm glad this is helping kids on ground.
Yeah, and think how long we work. And so, if you're going to go somewhere every day for, 40 years, oh my gosh, don't you want to love what you're going to do? And so, I just think all these increased opportunities, it's just so amazing for kids, because we want everybody to find their passion.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And sometimes I think I remember back in my school, the options were limited. Either you can take a science to be a doctor or an engineer in the high school level, and you also can take humanities, and you can, but it was literally like a hierarchy of things. The science students are the best and the commerce students are lower than them, and it was like a weird thing. And if a student was doing well, the educators would push them to go for science. And so I think it's dramatically changed. And I have a 2-year-old son, and I think it's gonna be such a wild world when he will enter or think about career. It's daunting and exciting to me of how it's gonna be.
Oh, agreed. Yeah, I wonder if the students, today realize how fortunate they are compared to, what it used to be back in the day.
It's both ways. It's also, I feel it a lot more uncertain world. I think I remember when I was in high school, if you get into engineering college, get a software engineering degree, you will land up at a decent job. And that trend, at least from early 2000 till I think even till 2022, was a pretty standard thumb rule that, if you want to make a 7-figure, a 6-figure, you will get it. It's not going to be unbelievable. But that's not the case. Even in my company, the way we are hiring, the demand for one particular job that's used to take 5 or 6 people team, one person is doing it. So yeah, it's both. It's a lot of options, but a lot of uncertainty right now.
Sure.
So tell me about this thing. Of course, I cannot avoid this question. So how are you guys looking at AI as a field? Because right now, so one of the programs that we run in high school and middle school, we actually show them about how AI is impacting all the fields, whether it's medical, entertainment, law, um, or software development, teaching, um, production, manufacturing, like all the kind of fields, and we show them how AI is actually impacting right now and how it can impact further. So have you guys done anything around the intersection of AI and career readiness?
The main thing has been this career view. Our department has done a lot with AI as far as, helping to make us as employees more efficient. And then, we've tried to put out guidance and resources for school districts in our state. But I would guess, the one big state level initiative that we've put out related to AI and career readiness is certainly the Career View goggles. And, that's pretty new. It's just now been, moved down to the elementary. So that's our big thing right now.
No, I think it's an area that you guys should also talk about, hopefully in the next meeting, because let's say even in the career goggle view, they are giving a view of how a life look like. But or this is the question that you can ask your vendors, whether in that particular, so if you're showing them a walkthrough of a FMCG factory, where they're making beverages or they're making cakes, for example, will they show them how AI is changing that field? Whether it is the every small thing, even the testing. So even if they're giving them a walkthrough of a pharmaceutical industry, how testing is happening with AI, how discovery is getting speed up with AI, or how they're doing better inventory management, better prediction with AI. So I think there's a lot of places, and I would love to, contribute in any capacity in that journey, because we have done deep research in that and we're constantly updating ourselves. It's very important for students to know the reality of world apart from just using AI to create their essays.
Yeah, somebody who's creative and a go-getter, they need to take all of these career view job opportunities and turn them into lesson plans that, like you said, there can be this follow-up. And the teachers can use these lesson plans to, provide more of the details for the students who are interested in this. So maybe somebody who's listening is a great entrepreneur and can develop these lesson plans for teachers.
Yeah, absolutely. As a closing remark, I would love to know, if a superintendent is, who wants to build a career readiness pipeline today, not in 5 years, but I would say what's the most important first move that they should make this week? Because if planning or strategy will take time. So if they want to do something in this week, which can start to show some immediate impact, what would it be?
I'd have to say, get all the key players together. And so I mentioned earlier that, creating a plan or having a team is critical. I probably said 100 times in my career, let's get the right players on the right seats on the bus. And so, if what we've had to really do is be creative with funding, because, we were just flush with ESSER funding a couple years ago. Yeah. And we did this amazing activity where we provided all of the districts with choice-ready grants. And so they could literally do anything they wanted to with these funds, as long as they could show how it's going to get more students choice ready. And obviously with the huge increase we've seen, it was successful. What they were doing was helping, but now those funds are gone. So we really had to, bring together all of the people, who hold the purse strings. So the Title I, the Title II folks, the Perkins people, all of the people who oversee these programs, and brainstorm, okay, how can we braid? How can we braid our funds and take a little bit of yours, and help the districts be able to keep doing some of these amazing things? So I think just, getting the right people together and forming a committee and coming up with a plan on, how can we move forward on creating a career readiness pipeline, and what funding source will be needed to do that.
Perfect. Now that's definitely helpful. And I think we did cover up all the bases around what has led to this incredible growth at North Dakota. Anything end that you think I didn't cover or I didn't ask that you want to share?
No, we love to share. We love to, help others see, what we've been doing. We have certainly many challenges here, like everybody does everywhere, but yeah, we've seen a lot of success with our Choice Ready framework, and hopefully we're going to be able to build that back down to the elementary level so we can continue to see success. But no, I thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit about what we're doing here in North Dakota.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time, Laurie. It's been fantastic, and I'm pretty sure this podcast will reach to the right audience, and they'll learn and they will inspire, and hopefully they also avail these funds and grants.
Thank you.